blues guitar players have a rich variety of rhythmic feels and styles to express ourselves, tell our stories, and to connect with our audience. I'm excited to share some of my favorite blues rhythms that have become staples in my playing, including shuffles, slow blues, boogies, a boogaloo, Piedmont style, and even a flamenco-inspired blues groove. I'll perform each rhythm style like I would on stage or in the studio. After that, I'll break down the rhythmic qualities and techniques used to play in each style. I hope they expand your rhythm playbook as much as they have mine. You can use TrueFire's looping and slow motion controls to learn at your own pace. Ready to get started? Grab your guitar, let's play.
Hello, hello, and welcome, fire starters. Welcome to another edition of TrueFire Live. We have a wonderful, wonderful guest on today, Sue Foley. But before we get into that, and before we have her on here for the interview, we need to go through some housekeeping. Down in the chat, please let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any questions, put them down in the chat, and we will get to them as we go on through the show. Any questions that you have for Sue, we will certainly cut through them and be able to ask her. But before we get into that, and before, we have the man with the plan, the guy who absolutely brings everything together. He's the glue that keeps things stuck together. Use your imagination on what that might be. He's in frigid Kansas City. It is Jeff, glued together sheets.
Thank you, Shane.
Was that good? Did I make you proud?
You always make me proud, my friend. It's an honor to be introduced by someone of your stature. So
Thank you.
Appreciate
I wish my
that.
dad was alive to hear that.
Absolutely. Well, we can only do what we can do. But I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yes, it is pretty chilly. It's been chilly here. But that's okay because we're about to heat things up. I got a feeling we're going to turn up the heat with a little bit of amazing blues tonight. We're stoked. We're so excited for our guest that we've got tonight, that she's taken time out of her absolutely crazy, insane, busy schedule to be here with us and do some playing, share some knowledge. So, for sure, if you've got questions for Sue about anything, drop them in the chat. We will get to as many as we can. And we'll pull some questions out and she'll go over as much as she can here for us. We also want to talk about the new course, about a lot of stuff. So because we want to talk about all that, you don't want to hear me ramble on. So let's go ahead and let's bring Sue on. That's what we're here for, is to see Sue. Hey, Sue, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's cold in Texas as well. I think it's going to be our third night going down to the 20s. So that's, that's chill.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy for Texas, right? But you're used to that though, because you come from much northern than Texas, right? You were dealt with cold weather before, right?
Yeah, I'm one of the weirdos that really likes it, and I'm like. But when I did a promo for the show, I said, well, make some hot cocoa and we'll hang out and talk guitar. So I made some hot cocoa. And I wanted to talk about one of my favorite hand warm-ups. This is it. Hold a hot cup of coffee before the show. It's what I do every night before the show.
That's perfect. Forget about finger exercises.
Forget about all that. None of that will work if your hands are cold anyway.
Right.
So right before I get on stage, I'm always like running around looking for some hot water, and then I hold the cup till right before they call me on. That's what I was doing before you called me.
Well, that's awesome. That's a good tip from a Canadian for sure. That's years of experience there speaking. So awesome. So you've done several things with TrueFire. Let's jump into some courses. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about here, but let's talk about some courses. You've done several, 3 courses with TrueFire, but the new one, the Blues Rhythm Spectrum, basically you give us the inside information on, I think it's 8 different cool grooves, basically these sort of essential blues grooves that I think is, it's so important for students when they really want to dig into this to basically get an understanding of the essential grooves, right? And that's really what you did, and you break these down and show them great. When you sort of put this together, how did you choose which ones to do? How did you choose these particular grooves?
I kind of just picked real basic stuff that we always refer back to in blues, like a shuffle, a jump blues, or um, a box shuffle, stuff like that, and just different, trying to really hammer home that rhythm is actually way more important than lead. And I know guitar players, you want to get going and you want to start doing single note leads and stuff, but if you don't have your rhythm good, you will not sound good on lead, guaranteed. So it's a really important, functionality of guitar.
Absolutely. So do you find rhythm is easier for you, or do you prefer it if you're playing solo, like a solo piece just by yourself, or like when you're with the band, when you've got the drums and bass going? How do you break that up, differentiate that in your head?
Well, it breaks up differently depending on the lineup of the group. So if it's a trio, like I tour trio quite a bit, then I'm playing lead and rhythm at the same time often. So you'll be doing, even if you're doing a lead, you gotta fill it in from the bottom. So you gotta be playing some of these, I don't know, triads and stuff, and working that into, like a, or like even something that simple, but that fills out the sound. If I'm playing with another guitar player, and I did demonstrate this on the Rhythm Spectrum course, is that you do the top and the bottom. Often in blues, that's kind of how we refer to it. Like one guy's on top, one guy's on the bottom, or gal, or whatever. And then I'm not playing rhythm and lead at the same time. I'm playing rhythm when he's playing lead. He's playing rhythm when I'm playing lead. And then when you're with a big group, like with piano, a couple of guitars, and harmonica. I mean, some blues bands, and they might have horns, and organ, like a big band. You really have to scale things down and find a groove, and you don't want to be noodling. You got to have your ears really wide open to what the next person is playing and feeding off of that, or joining in with somebody. So the rhythm is really just, it's kind of I think all the really great guitar players are great rhythm, generally. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them are great rhythm players. And there's a real zen to rhythm, I could do rhythm all night, backing up a great front person, and I wouldn't even care,
That's awesome. And of course, for writing songs, I mean, you're usually writing from a rhythm perspective and putting a song together and, finding the groove and the chord progression and all of that kind of a feel, rather than just shredding away on a riff.
Totally. And when you're playing for an audience, especially in a bar or something, when people are dancing and they want to get loose, they're not responding to single note leads. Generally, they're responding to a strong rhythm, and and I've watched the masters do that so well.
Yeah. That's so cool that you've had the opportunity to play with a lot of those masters and be right there on stage with them and see how that works, and I think that's a huge help when you can see, this is how it's working, and people are responding to this. They don't need to have a fiery, crazy solo in order to really have a great time.
Hell no. If you watch, like, even Jimmy Vaughn, he just do like a rock and roll thing. I mean, he doesn't have to play any leads. It's just people just start dancing, Same with Billy Gibbons. Like, if you listen to ZZ Top, it's not really super lead driven. It's actually rhythm driven.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good advice, I think. So, and this course is great for that. So you go over a bunch of different grooves. That I think the cool thing about the way you teach these is you make them accessible. They're I always feel like the best blues is like, it's simple but not easy, right? It's like it's simple, and you go, but it's not easy to get the feel right. You got to have that feel right, and I think you do a really good job of breaking that down, because it is important to have the feel and the difference between a shuffle and something else. You got to have those feels right.
Yeah, those feels are pretty distinct, and I learned a lot listening to even early Chicago blues, or It's like 40s and 50s Chicago blues when they were, they were doing leads and rhythms, but it had just gotten electrified, and you're really hearing how these guitar players work together, and there's a magic to it. I mean, it's like a dance, it's really so special.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, you do a great job of dancing. um, so let's do this. We've got you here. Let's show us what's your favorite groove. Like when you're talking about these different grooves, if you were going to play something, if somebody said, "Hey, let's play a little bit," what would be your probably go-to, if you will, thing to jam? Right? If you're going to jam with somebody and it's just like it's up to you to set it up, how would you approach that?
I'd either do like a straight sort of Jimmy Reed shuffle, in the key of E, and I did demonstrate that on the course, but that's just something like, that's 101. We all have, if you're into traditional blues, this groove is really good, and everybody loves this groove. People have written a million songs with this groove, and there's a whole bunch of ways to play it, but Jimmy Reed kind of had almost the coolest take on that, so if you listen to good Jimmy Reed, that just kind of, it's groovy, it's not too difficult, and it's really like, if you can actually, the thing about playing that, it's so easy, right? But you say it's simple, or it's so simple, but you really have to have your sounds uniform, and it's got to flow, it can't be like, it's got to be like, groove,
Smooth.
yeah,
Very
right?
good. Yeah. That's awesome. So somebody just asked a question about, advice on playing in the pocket, and that's perfectly a perfect example of that, of how to think about that. What kind of advice do you have for somebody to, for help them play in the pocket? What are you listening to, or how do you get that feel?
Well, play along with your favorite records and get used to the tempos. Like it's important to be in tempo. So a lot, I'm not averse to still practicing with a metronome. If I'm trying to get something, especially with my solo show, like it was important that my time was good. So I worked with my metronome to get my songs, and I studied what tempo was the right tempo, and I would practice at that tempo. I practiced at different tempos to find the right tempo. And that's when you find the right tempo, that helps you get into the pocket. Tempo is really important. So finding your tempo, and then working with something that's going to hold your, whether it's a drummer or something that doesn't move. So sometimes a metronome is great because it doesn't lie, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes, it doesn't. It holds you to the truth, right?
Yeah, and
So,
the groove and the pocket, you can have a deep pocket, and there's a lot of people that draw back, and it feels like they're slowing down sometimes, but they're not. It's just because they're playing below the beat, or behind the beat, as they say. And sometimes you're playing right on the beat, sometimes you're playing in front of the beat.
right.
So those things are also things you can play with the metronome.
Yeah. Awesome. Good advice for sure. All right, so we're going to talk about some different stuff. Uh, but let's jump into this course a little bit more in detail. I'm going to have Tommy jump on here and show, because if anybody who's interested in picking this course up, number one, or any of the three of Sue's courses at TrueFire, we've got link in the description, probably below the YouTube vid, and we'll drop it in the chat so you'll know how to get this, pick it up. But Tommy's going to show us a couple of the cool things for anyone who's not familiar with TrueFire courses on how it works, and just the coolness of being able to slow things down, to being able to loop stuff in sections. So Tommy, our head of production here, show us a couple cool things, would you?
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. And, the other thing I just want to mention is that Sue has not just this one course out on TrueFire, but actually there's three. Let me just make sure I get my angles. There we go. So I'm just showing you the three courses that we currently have. These are all up and available for purchase right now. The Blues Rhythm Spectrum is the latest and greatest of the three, but there is also guitar trailblazers, which also kind of, we'll talk a little bit more about Sue's album in a minute, but lots of really cool insights and very diverse types of performance studies in that one. And the blues shuffle building blocks, I know the question we got about drilling and getting the rhythm stuff down. That's actually a great course if you guys are looking for that type of instruction. That course, Sue takes you through like from a really, really basic shuffle groove and shows you how she introduces a little bit more spice, a little bit more sophistication with each layer. And there are lots of practice sessions in that one. So make sure you head over to TrueFire and check those out and support Sue. And why don't we take a look for the tools and a little demo. Why don't we look at the Guitar Trailblazers course? I'm going to jump in there. And the cool thing about the TrueFire learning experience, and Sue's courses here feature all these learning tools, is that you have a lot of these things right at your fingertips. Great ways to learn, great ways to study. I'm going to pull up one of these performances. You have all of the different performance studies that she covered in this course, and you could see she covered some real legendary women players throughout this course. I think there are 8 or 10 of them in this. Let's pull up this Elizabeth Cotton performance for a sec. Just take a look at this. So you'll notice right away, right below the video, you have the tablature and the notation that stays in sync with Sue's fingers as she plays. So let's check that out. Pretty neat. So you can see how that works. It's great. I mean, you have that ability to study bar by bar if you want, dive into any one of these bars or a section, and you can create a little loop from it. And then when you play, you'll notice it stays in that loop. Not the greatest loop in the world I just made, but you can see that, the potential is there, right? But yeah, you can jump in anywhere, and like, especially with Sue, with this kind of finger style stuff. I mean, this is just really learning tools like this to be able to see exactly what's going on under the fingers and be able to take a bar at a time, right? Finger style is tricky. A lot of people struggle with getting all of the movements and synchronization down. This really helps. And there are other things, like there's a neck view if you want to see it sort of like as if you were looking down at your guitar neck. You have that ability too, so just let that play for a minute. And then there are speed controls, so if we want to just work this at a little bit slower tempo, we can do that. Or you can go crazy, go nuts, and speed it up if you want. So lots of cool learning tools in here. There's metronome and things that you can turn on. And then, of course, you have the ability to download the PDF chart. You could print those out. Some people like to actually have the assets in front of them, printed out, ready to work on it. So kind of, the learning platform really puts all of these things right in front of you, makes it easy for you to learn from Sue. So pretty exciting stuff. Great performances in here, Sue. It's a great course. All of these are.
Yeah.
Thanks. And when I was learning Piedmont, of course, it was long before this technology was available. You really do have to slow it down to do those movements, like really slow. So that's a really handy tool. I because I had to,
Yep.
It's hard for me to do it slow.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Awesome. There's definitely some helpful ways to learn. It's almost like cheating these days, So back when I had to learn to play, it was like, man, I had to slow down a record player.
Mm-hmm.
How imagine that,
I know, and then drop what they call dropping the needle.
For sure. But no, that's awesome. I want to shift in gears and talk about something different. But because we're here, and someone just had a question about something that you mentioned, which is the idea of playing behind the beat. So you talked about that and sort of laying back, playing behind the beat. Someone is asking, what advice would you have on, helping someone practice that? What should they be doing to learn to be able to lay back like that?
Oh God. I mean, it's kind of a feel, and it's really it first I mean it's I think it's just something you can experiment with, maybe with the metronome, and see if you can pull the beat back. Um so when you hear the beat, you're kind of it's I don't even know how to explain it, honestly.
Yeah, it's a,
I wish I did. It's just something you sort of experiment with. Like playing on top of the beat is really obvious because you're like, you know. See, I'm right on the beat there. If I wanted to play behind the beat, I'd be you feel the pocket
yeah.
get deeper, but my foot didn't change
Right, right.
tempo.
Yeah, no, that's excellent, I think. And yeah, the beat is much bigger than most people usually think. They usually think, oh, the metronome is right there. But as you said, you can be in front of it, on it, behind it. There's a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah, and when you really notice this stuff when you play on ensembles, because you'll find people have their pockets. Like sometimes I'll get up with a drummer and he just naturally has a behind the beat pocket, and I'll have to adjust what I'm doing to
Yeah,
lock in with
yeah,
him, or the opposite. They might be really on top of the beat or even ahead of the beat, and all of a sudden it's always so. Another way to maybe learn how to do it is to play with different ensembles, different drummers, like go to jams and kind of
yeah.
feel people, and you kind of will start to notice, well, that was that, and this was this, and then you'll find out what you enjoy too, how you like to feel.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, find out what your thing is. So, all right, well, let's speak of your thing, because the most awesome thing is you are nominated for a Grammy, which is so cool.
The
For your
album, I always say it's the album, but I
Well,
am
yes, it is the album.
nominated for the
The One
album.
Guitar Woman is nominated, played by you. So I'm throwing you in there. um, so I mean, how cool is that, right? Super exciting.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
And especially I would guess, because this material is probably very near and dear to your heart. The material, the songs, and it's pretty cool to be able to take that and capture it, and put it out like this.
Yeah, it's a labor of love, and it was a study, and it took me a long time to learn. So it was really satisfying to be able to do it, to be able to execute it, and then execute it live, and then have people respond so positively to it. And
Yeah.
I'm really
Well,
happy.
it's amazing. It's amazing stuff. And of course, it's acoustic, right? So you played a lot of electric guitar, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, the acoustic, because you certainly are known for all of your fiery electric guitar playing.
Yeah.
But you're a lot of people play a little electric and they play acoustic and they kind of go back and forth, but you're actually really good at both. You actually do both well. So
Yeah.
that's not everybody. Some people do a little of both, but you do it really well. So, this album is acoustic. Um
It's done all on this guitar. This is
Nice.
a flamenco negra from Paracho, Mexico. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Handmade.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, nice. So that basically, how do you transition back and forth? How does your mindset work when you think, okay, I'm going to play this guitar versus I'm playing the electric? Is there a big shift for you, or is it just you've done both so much it's just natural?
I started on acoustic, and when I first picked up an electric guitar, it was weird. And I know a lot of people have had that experience where you're like, "Where's the sound? The sound's there," and it's completely rather than the sound coming literally out of your body. resonating all over your body. It's a completely different vibe. So I think of them sort of strategically like different instruments, first of all. Like that's one instrument, this is another instrument. So they're treated very differently. And but when I'm playing live, I do use an amp. So that compromises some of the integrity of pure acoustic. But I don't know many people who even play acoustic that doesn't amplify it, unless you're miking it and you're in a church and, you got the perfect microphone and room. But otherwise, so I have a little amp and a little AER acoustic amp, and that works great. So now that I'm playing through an amp, when I'm playing live, it's almost like an electric guitar, right? It sounds beautiful. It still sounds like an acoustic, thankfully. But it does. And the cool thing about acoustic and electric is you can, especially with the right hand techniques that I studied, a lot of them can be applied from the acoustic to the Telecaster, which I love, like just playing with the fingertips or nails or whatever, So I mean that is something I would play exactly the same on an electric, and it would work. The things that don't work as well are maybe finger picking, but you can even do that, the finger picking stuff. But I love the right hand technique stuff. So I really stress that a lot. And when I talk about guitar, and I apply it to the Telecaster and to this.
Very cool. Very cool. Someone's asking a pretty good question actually about working on blues and singing. So, that's something that I think a lot of players either they start doing it that way or sometimes they struggle with that, right? They struggle doing a cool guitar part and then singing. Any advice for that?
Yeah, start simple. So like, don't do something so complex. Just start doing, just start strumming, just like a folk singer would, But on blues, even just, to sing over a shuffle, Bright light, I mean, you could just start kind of humming and just get comfortable with it. It takes a while. It didn't come naturally to me either. So
Really? Yeah. Yeah.
Everything I've done, I think I've worked pretty hard at. Nothing was like, that was easy. Usually everything was like, it took a long time. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Makes you appreciate it more when you have to work for it. So
Totally. Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that. We got other people chiming in saying, great album. I've listened to it several times already. Love this album. So yeah, a lot of fans on this album, and it is really, really good. Destined to win the Grammy. Going to be really good. So you have if only we could get all these fans that are watching to just to chime right in there. So someone's asking about gear when you play acoustic. What do you use besides obviously that guitar? You talked a little bit about your amp. Do you do that when you're playing live, when you're doing live gigs?
Yeah, I use that amp that's a little 60-watt AER in it. And what it is the reason I got it is because it sounds really good. It always sounds great. And a lot of times with acoustics, I used to have a lot of problem with DIs. You get a DI set and it coming through the monitors. And I swear I would have like a $3,000 acoustic. It sounded like 25 cents. And I was like, why did I pay all this money for this guitar? It sounds like so great acoustic. And then I put it through your monitors and it sounds like 25 cents, So this little amp I have, and they have other ones, other ones that we rent sometimes. I'll think of the name. They're really popular. But, if you can get a good acoustic sound out of an amp and then you put it where you can hear it, then you don't have to get those monitors.
Right.
And you have more control. It's about being able to control your sound the best that you can and have it being consistent and there for you every night, because the variables of a DI and monitors is just, especially with the different sound men at every gig. Not everybody travels with their own sound man, so
Right.
then you're at the mercy of them, So this is just it's fantastic. It weighs nothing. I can put it in a
Nice.
little suitcase
Nice.
and check it on the plane if I want.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's having that control sure helps, because sometimes backline isn't always what it's cracked up to be.
Oh yeah.
You play wherever, whenever. You have to deal with some stuff. So we got one more question here before we jump into something else. Tuning. Do you play in different tunings, or do you just always play in standard?
Actually, there's a song I can do a little bit of open D. There is a song on the new album that was done in open E tuning, which is just an open E chord.
Right.
And that was to do a certain Maybelle Carter song called Lonesome Homesick Blues. But otherwise, I don't mess with tunings all that much.
Nice. Gotcha.
I feel like I got so much to figure out still with this. And the other thing about tunings, I feel like a lot of people, they learn a new tuning and then they want to learn the same licks that they know on the regular tuning, on the open tuning. I'm like, well, we're just learning the same licks. We already know those licks. Why are we just... Right. It's different voicings, but I mean, unless it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely. Like, what am I doing this for? This is extra work.
Don't need that extra work.
But I get it. There is some nuance to some open tunings that you can't get with standard tuning that are really special. So
absolutely, yeah. If you're doing some some sympathetic strings, some open strings ringing out, yeah,
totally. Early blues stuff. I mean, it's not to say I won't ever be more versatile in tunings. I'm still learning, which is good. So
yeah,
give me time.
All right. We'll check in with you later and see how that's going. All right. So I think it's time in the show. So I want you to mentally prepare for this, because we're going to bring Shane back on.
Okay.
And so I feel like, you're strong. You're still doing strong. You're drinking your coffee. You're good to go. Let's bring Shane back on and see what Shane's got cooking. Take it away, Shane.
Well, hello, Sue. It's so lovely to have you here. I'm particularly fond of your flamenco segment on your latest course. It's something I really enjoy. They bring me on here to be a silly goose, which is a creature that I'm sure you're familiar with, as you are from the great North. But I have a genuine question, which is, the blues is very male dominated. What do you think we could do to bring more young women into the genre?
Well, I don't know if that's an accurate question, because if you go back in the history of blues, the first blues stars were women.
Okay.
So blues has a rich history of strong female performers and musicians too. There's never been as many of them. Like as things progressed and the blues became more of an instrumental music, there was less women featured on instrumentals. But there's always been great vocalists, some of the best in the world, and usually they're very, very special. So when I was coming up, I thought with the blues genre there was actually a lot more women than other genres, especially guitar players, and I attribute that to Memphis Minnie, which is why I've always credited her at all my shows. And now there's lots. It seems like there's a lot. Bass players, guitar players. So I'm gonna just disagree with you, I guess.
I will happily accept that disagreement, because we have some people like Jeff here, who is completely knowledgeable in so many different ways, and then you have me, who they bring on to be the class clown. And then the moment I try to do something genuine, I completely fumble the ball. Here I am. So I can go to my next question, which is, when I was doing some research about you, it said that you really got into it by, the Rolling Stones. So I guess my question to you is, do you think they would be as popular if they were called the Kidney Stones, or do you think that's like copyright infringement?
I don't think that would have caught on to be at all.
And why is that?
Why is that? Because Muddy Waters never wrote a song called Kidney Stone. That's why.
That's valid. Where do you think Muddy Waters came from? What's that name? It sounds like a physical ailment as well. You don't have to answer that. That's why they only bring me on for 2 minutes.
Muddy Waters. Muddy Waters. I think he played in Muddy Waters when he was a kid or something in Mississippi.
Nice. I don't have much else to add to this.
Thanks for stopping by, Shane.
But I will say,
you can keep playing, Shane. We'll play.
No. I'm having a great time. There will be a few more things coming up a bit later that I have cooking that you will absolutely be caught off guard by. But again, I say this genuinely. There's so many people that are here to see you. And this is a question that, again, that is a real question that I have, which is, if you had not gotten into music, what do you think you would be doing instead?
That, I've thought about that a lot. And I even from a little kid, I knew I was going to be a musician. I've always known. And so when I think about that question, I've asked myself that question, like, what would I do if I wasn't doing this? I know if I couldn't play music now, I would write. Because I would write.
I'm sorry. Did you ever dabble in any other instruments other than guitar?
I dabbled in the cello.
No.
And I look forward to one day spending time with my cello.
Do you ever find any crossover in how you're playing that and perhaps the style that you're playing? Is there a blues style to playing cello?
No, and I was curious about that. So when I was working on cello, I was trying to do some bluesy things because it's an interesting instrument that way because you can bend notes and you can slide, you can do all these kind of cool things. And I've never really heard of blues cello.
So a follow-up question. That's what we can. I was going to have a follow-up question, but the only other thing that I know about cello, which is Yo-Yo Ma. And the follow-up question is, do you think Yo-Yo Ma would be as popular if his name was Kidney Stones?
No.
That's all I have for you.
I think he has a great name, Yo-Yo Ma.
It's fantastic. And I do look forward to the next conversation that we have, if not tonight, sometime in the future, where we can hear a version of your blues cello, because that legitimately sounds very interesting.
Oh my God, that's gonna take forever.
No, I like that. I think that sounds like a TrueFire course to me, in blues cello, right? Sign us up.
Yeah, right.
I'm into it.
We're a long ways off.
All right. Well, thank you, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
As always, my friend. Thanks for being here. Shane always has some entertaining thinking going on in his head, which we love about him. So just a couple more questions that have been rolling in, some simple ones. What gauge of strings do you use on your electric?
10 to 46. I use
Awesome.
that Dario, and I've used them my whole career. I'm a bit of a stalwart for it's just if something works, I don't change it. But I know a lot of people switch around and try different things all the time, and I'm actually less adventurous that way than a lot of other players. So I've played Dario 10 to 46 my whole career.
Nice.
The orange pack.
Yeah. There you go. Awesome.
Kind of iconic. It's like an iconic string, I think.
That's great. How about on your acoustic? What's your acoustic?
These are Savarez, which is a really nice brand. I think a lot of the professional classical and flamenco players use those. They're good strings. And I use regular tension.
Okay. Cool. Let's play something on this guitar. How about we play a song? Play something.
This is for Shane. Do a little Spanish. How's that?
That's great. That's awesome. That leads me right into a question here, which tell us a little bit about sort of your Spanish, flamenco, all of those influences, and how that sort of coincides for you with early blues, right? How do you blend all of that into, hey, here's how you play?
Yeah, that's a good question because I find, first of all, I realize, and I attribute her at my shows now, is Charo was, turns out she's the first woman I ever saw really play the guitar.
Really?
And a lot of people might remember her from variety shows in the 70s and 80s when she would just pop out, and do her dancing, giggly, wiggly thing. And then she would play guitar and you'd be like, wow, how cool is that, So I think that's where my love of Spanish guitar came from, honestly. And also I think Jimmy Vaughn, bringing it back to Jimmy, he did play with a Spanish guitar player, and he kind of brought flamenco back in a way and around the community in Austin. I had left by then, but I was kind of paying attention. I went back home to have my son at the time, and I think he released the song Flamenco Dancer, and he had a flamenco player. And it turns out in my hometown where I was back, there was a flamenco teacher, so I started taking lessons. And he was excellent. And the cool thing about it was, at the time, I was getting a little stuck in my blues playing. And you get like that sometimes. You just kind of get in a rut. You don't know what to do. And you've been repeating yourself for years. And I took my first flamenco lesson, and it was seriously like I'd never played guitar before. It was like I was learning a C chord for the first time or something, very humbling. Yeah. But also kind of opened my mind, like, wow, there's so many more possibilities on this instrument. And a lot of that was a lot of the right hand. It was the different rhythms, the different time signatures. And, but I also, the more I kind of listened to it, like people have said, it's just Spanish blues, flamenco. It's improvised. It's heartfelt. It's traditional. It's the music of oppressed people in a lot of ways. And, people who've been kind of cast off from society, the gypsies, and it's just, I think and it's improvised, and it's also, there's a lot of minor stuff in it. Like, there's a lot of major minor dancing going on that's really interesting, but I think they kind of work together really beautifully. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Absolutely. Charo, I totally recall that. And yeah, you didn't strike you as a serious guitar player until you heard her play guitar. Then you're like, holy smokes. It's like, there's a sort of TV show people back then that if you knew them just on TV or something, Glenn Campbell or something, and you didn't realize the depth of his musicianship, or Jerry Reed, all these guys that some people came to them as sort of on TV and stuff, but they were like, virtuosos, so it's pretty cool to see that. So that's awesome. That's a great way to combine the rawness of those musics, I think is the thing. Like you say, the improvisation and the sort of rawness or earthiness or whatever of blues and some of that early stuff too. Very, very cool. So what about, because you did our TrueFire course, the Guitar Trailblazers, had some similarities to the One Guitar Woman album in that you really paid respect to many of the Trailblazers. So let's talk about a couple of those, right? Let's talk about a couple of, your biggest influences, and some of the real, groundbreaking players that you cover.
Okay, well, I mentioned Memphis Minnie because she's a blues player, and I always talk about her at every show, and she's been a big influence on me since I was a teenager. she's a real traditional blues musician, and her guitar style, they started out as country blues musicians, and then they migrated to Chicago and became some of the first recorded electric Chicago blues. So she, her guitar styles kind of weave right into traditional, Mississippi blues into something that became quite a lot more sophisticated, like big city Chicago blues. And the way she plays with her partner, she worked with her husbands, two different husbands, but the way those two guitars always played back and forth is a great example of what I call the top and the bottom and the parts, the little puzzle pieces that make great blues playing, guitar players work together so well. So she's really important. I can never stress her influence. Somebody just wrote about Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I mean, also Sister Rosetta now she's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and everything, so she's a lot more recognized, and there's great videos of Rosetta. She had an unusual guitar style as well. She often played an open D, or, sometimes it'd be C sharp and an open chord, and her single note lead playing was just dynamic and, just rocking, early rock and roll, and she's such a huge influence, but also her stage antics, which have been said to be a big influence on Chuck Berry and Little Richard and, all those, Jerry Lee Lewis. They all watched, Sister Rosetta and took what she had, going on stage-wise and performance-wise, and they put that into all their, these young musicians were copying that, so her influence can't be overstated either.
Yeah.
I mean, all the women I feature on the album, they're all such monstrous players, but also visionaries. Maybelle Carter with her Carter Scratch and all her different guitar styles. She's well known in the country scene, but that Carter Scratch, they say, is one of the most influential styles of, country guitar, country and folk, because of the way it you're holding down the rhythm. You're kind of, that's just a little bit of Wildwood Flower, So if you're seeing what I'm doing there, like even just a thing like this, Now I think I do that on the TrueFire chorus. And you can slow that down because you really do have to slow down those rhythms to learn them and to play those patterns on the bass parts, And to keep your fingers going in unison, in rhythm, and keeping the time uniform. And I worked with a metronome for Maybelle's guitar, for her styles. I worked real hard with a metronome to keep that, because that rhythm's got to be like, you listen to those Carter family recordings and she's solid, man. She's rocking it. I mean, some of the tempos are really fast and you're like, wow. Yeah. She's a killer. So those are three that are amazing. And then when we talked about finger picking, Elizabeth Cotton, that kind of guitar style is very intricate, because and she played left-handed upside down, which is a whole other level of, what, holy, what. But that is, there's a lot of moving parts with that, like. Now, there's a lot going on there, and I'm playing it quite fast, so.
Yeah.
But when I learned it, I had to play it really slow, which for a guitar player is hard to do. Yeah. Sometimes it's harder to play slow. Yeah. And another good lesson for people who are trying to figure something out, and it's too fast. Somebody told me once, and early on in my career, if you can't play it slow, you can't play it fast. So slow it down and learn it, and work with time. And you know, when you work with a metronome, and if you slow it right down, you'll get your pacing really even. And then you slowly speed it up, and you'll just have this tight. The rhythm is so tight. It's so great.
Absolutely. That's a slow, go slow to go fast kind of a thing, right?
Generally, except with the Piedmont folk thing for some reason.
Just go fast.
It's really hard to do slow. It's really hard to do slow.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So you, a couple of questions about you using Thumbpick, right? So talk about your Thumbpick when you, what kind of Thumbpick are you using? How do you do it? Where did that kind of come from?
That came from when I first started playing. I like I said, I started on acoustic, and then I moved to electric. So I started in country blues. Is the first stuff in blues that I learned was traditional country blues, and that's generally played with a Thumbpick. You know, because you're using your whole hand. You know, and you're doing that like, so you can. See how I'm doing that? I'm bumping the bass string at the same time. So a lot of times when you're playing country blues, you're either it's either solo or duo. It's not generally a big band. So you're. So I'm always thumping the bass string, and that's filling in the sound, you know. So I kind of learned that early on, that in order to play country blues with the sort of the integrity of the original recordings, usually at least a Thumbpick. Sometimes people use finger picks, but at least a Thumbpick was necessary. And then I saw, Muddy Waters, and he had a Thumbpick, and I thought, well, that's cool. And I just thought I'll just stick with it.
Yeah.
And then I never got into flat picking, you know. I do one flat picking song, the same Mabel Carter song that's in the open tuning on the new album. Mm-hmm. Lonesome Homesick Blues is played with a flat pick in open tuning, but that's the only song I've done like that.
That's good. Good. Stretch you out on that one song, and then do something different, and then back to feeling comfortable.
You can hold these like a flat pick, and I use a pretty sturdy ones. These are called Golden Gate. They're really heavy. Like, they last me forever. And I use the size small, which just fits my thumb perfect. And I can use it like a flat pick, you know. So I'm holding it, you know. So for single note Lee, you know. But then when you want to open things up, and again, that goes back to because I play in trio a lot and I want a full sound, that I'm always thumping bass strings, you know. And by now it's like, I don't think about it. I just do it. It's just, but it's easier to do with a thumb pick, and also finger pick and stuff, you know. I mean, you can't do that with a flat pick.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, your picking style is always interesting on acoustic and electric, you know, the way you sort of play. And, you know, I think a lot of people say, you know, when you're playing with your fingers, it's just a different feel anyway, right? If you're using your fingers in there, and even guys that do flat pick and hybrid picking and that kind of thing, getting that fingers on the string just gives you something different, you know. It's a different feel.
It really does. The flesh on the string has a certain sound. It's really soft and warm, you know, and sometimes flat picks especially get a little brittle sounding, but the fingers sound beautiful on the strings.
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to draw in one more question here, which is, talk a little bit about writing. You're such a great writer. So when you're writing your original stuff, you know, do you have any specific way to go about that, or does it happen in a lot of different ways? What's your approach to songwriting in general?
In general, I'm kind of always writing. Like you never really turn it off. It's kind of like you're always listening for something, or if you hear a line somebody says, or a word in passing, or sometimes you're in your car and a little tune will come to your head. That's when voice memos on your phone is great. You can just kind of sing into it, or um, but I go through jags where I'm more active in it. Like I'll be more um, like direct about it, like intentional, I guess is the word I want. That I'll be in writing mode, and I'll have my notebooks around, and I'll be writing, and I think my best advice for that is just allow yourself to be really crappy because you know what I mean. Like I think with writing especially, and this could go for playing too, but with writing we can be very critical on ourselves and think, oh no, that's not very good, or you think it's better than it is. Um, the good way to gauge that is just play it for somebody and see their reaction, and you'll see if you're on the right track or not. But never play anything before you're ready either. You don't want to show anything too soon. It's like taking a souffle out of the oven before it's time. It could just sink and be done, you know. That happens, you know. You'll be like onto something, and then you'll show it to someone, and they'll say one word, and you'll be
Right,
like,
right,
"Okay, I'm not going to do that," you know.
right.
So this whole self-critical thing is really tough. So I really cut myself a lot of slack. I write a lot, and I write a lot of crap. I do, and I don't mind. Like I'll write something, I go like, that's really silly, you know, whatever. But you kind of let
Yeah.
yourself do it without just filtering yourself all the time, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes you gotta, get the crappy things out of the way to get to the good things, There's it's
exactly. Sometimes you got to write a lot to get something good, and it's not like you're just gonna come out and be like brilliant. It might take a
right.
while, you know. It's another instrument. Just I always think about writing, and when I did get more intentional about my writing, I was like, well, how long did it take me to learn guitar? Like I practiced, you know, hours and hours a day for years and years and
Yeah,
years. So it might take that long too, you know. You just never
right.
know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think a lot of people are hard on themselves and don't think they write well, or they get frustrated and they don't see it being great tunes. And next thing you know, they're just kind of abandoning that side of things when maybe they were right on the edge of really getting to the really good stuff. So yeah, you got to hang in there and keep writing for sure.
You
So
got to just be really diligent about practicing. Like even with guitar, I mean, I'm never where I'm gonna want to be. You know, I always want to be
yeah,
better than I am,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you know, if you look back 10 years, you go, well, I've come a long way since then, but I'm not
yeah.
where I want to be. But you know,
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a great point. I always tell students, don't think about what you're doing now, but if you practice, think about what will you be like in a year from now. You'll be better. So put in the time because it makes a difference. That's how you get better. That's how everybody gets better. So
there is no way around it.
no,
There's no way around it. You got to work at it.
yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
some people are brilliant. I've seen a few guitar players in my day that just seemed to pick it up and were just
Sure.
brilliant. And I was like, wow, you know, how did they get so good and so quick? And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like struggling. I'm practicing. I'm working my butt off, but
yeah.
I just don't know any other way than just get up and do it every day.
That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. I know we're getting towards the end of time. You want to play another song? You want to play us something while you got a guitar? That would be awesome. I think.
Okay. Pull my stool around. Yeah, I'll take it back to Elizabeth Cotton, and I'll do since I got my acoustic out here, I'll do "Oh Babe, It Ain't No Lie" because that's a fun one. Great, it's a really fun guitar piece. One old woman, Lord, in this town dad keep on telling her lies on me. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. 'Cause this life I'm living is very high. Been all around this whole round world, honey, I just got back today. Work all week, honey, I bring it on to you. Honey, babe, what more can I do? Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. 'Cause this life I'm living is very high.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hey.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you, Sue. That is amazing. Once again, it's so awesome to have you here. Thanks to everybody for watching. Go check out Sue's courses on TrueFire, all three of them. Yeah, you know, grab them all. They're really, really good stuff. She's a great, not only great player, but a great teacher. As you can see just from the stuff she's doing here. We will continue to do more and more probably together. So super stoked to have you here, and we will you know, be following along. Obviously, go check out Sue. Do you have any place you want to send anybody, if any sort of parting where they can find you online?
Well, SueFoley.com is basically it, and my TrueFire links are there as well. So that's kind of the best, you know, hub. But everything else is social media. All my social media is Sue Foley Official, so you can find me on all the platforms. Except, yeah, most of them actually. I'm more active on some than others, but I'm kind of there on all.
Awesome,
of them.
awesome.
But I love YouTube, and I love Instagram. I'm on a lot, and the TikTok I'm working on. The TikTok thing I'm still catching up with TikTok.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, very cool. We'll everybody go there.
Facebook. I'm on Facebook.
Absolutely, for sure. I'm going to bring Tommy and Shane on here. Once again, congratulations on Grammy nomination. Absolutely amazing. That's just an incredible honor, and we're, you know, so excited for you, and that's very, very cool. So we appreciate you being here. We're going to bring the guys on to sign off here.
And thank you very much for having me, and thanks for everybody who came out today to join us. I hope they enjoyed it, and let us know if you have any questions. Those TrueFire videos are, especially the Blues Shuffle, the first one I did is great for beginners. So if you're a beginner blues player, I recommend that one for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very good stuff.
Yeah.
So
love working with you guys.
well, thank you much. Same for us, Sue, and we will catch you later. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
See you, Sue. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.